What if I told you that the key to unlocking a better life isn't just about making grand sweeping changes, but about making small, intentional changes to your daily routine? It's all about your habits, the small, repetitive actions you take every single day. But what's even more fascinating is how these habits don't just impact your daily life, they shape your brain and, over time, transform your very identity. You see, habits aren't just things we do on autopilot. They are the building blocks of our daily existence, and through them, we create the foundation for our future. The brain itself is wired for habits. In fact, when you repeat an action consistently, your brain forms new neural pathways that make it easier to perform that action again. It's called neural plasticity, and it's the way your brain changes in response to your actions. Your brain is constantly evolving, and you have the power to guide that evolution. But here's the thing. Habits, whether good or bad, compound. A small habit, practiced consistently, can yield profound results. Think about it. One small act of kindness every day. One mindful moment. 1 hour spent learning a new skill. It may seem insignificant at first, but over time these small actions will shape the person you become. Now, let's talk about the mindset that will propel you forward. Changing your habits requires believing in your ability to change. If you don't think you can improve, then you won't. But when you approach your habits with a mindset of growth, knowing that change is possible, you give yourself the power to succeed. Every step you take, no matter how small, is a victory toward a stronger, more purposeful life. So, how do we make lasting change? Start simple. Focus on one habit at a time. Something small like drinking more water, getting 10 minutes of exercise each day, or reading for just 10 minutes before bed. Begin with a habit that's easy to achieve, and as you master that, you'll build confidence to tackle bigger changes. And remember, setbacks will happen. Be kind to yourself. The journey of change isn't a straight line. It's a series of steps forward and sometimes back. But each step, no matter how small, is progress. In the end, the habits you choose are the life you create. They influence your actions, your thoughts, and even your identity. Your brain is constantly learning and adapting. So make it work for you. Build habits that will empower you to become the best version of yourself. Remember, it's not about perfection, but about progress. The more you focus on the small, consistent habits, the bigger the impact they'll have on your life and your brain. Our habits are the silent architects of our lives. They are the actions we take every day without much thought or awareness. And yet, they are the very things that shape our future. Whether it's the way we approach our work, how we treat others, or how we care for our bodies, habits form the foundation for everything we do. Understanding the power of habit formation is essential because it gives us the ability to create meaningful and lasting changes in our lives. The truth is, we don't just wake up one day with a set of habits. We create them, consciously or unconsciously, through repeated actions over time. When we begin to understand how habits form, we realize that they don't have to be fixed or permanent. Instead, we have the power to change them, which opens up an incredible possibility for personal growth and transformation. At the heart of habit formation is the concept of repetition. The more we repeat an action, the more our brain solidifies that action as part of our routine. The brain is wired to automate behaviors that it perceives as necessary, efficient, or useful, allowing us to free up mental energy for other tasks. This is why habits are so powerful. They are ingrained in the very structure of our brains, making them harder to change once established. But the good news is, habits are not set in stone. Every time we repeat an action, we are rewiring the neural pathways in our brain, creating stronger connections that make that behavior feel more automatic over time. This process is called neuroplasticity. the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. What this means is that by consciously repeating new behaviors, we can literally change the structure of our brains and build new habits that align with our desired outcomes. The journey to habit formation begins with awareness. To change our habits, we must first recognize which habits are serving us and which ones are holding us back. It's easy to overlook the habits we've developed over time because they feel so natural and automatic. We often don't stop to consider how these habits are influencing our lives. Well, when we bring awareness to our actions and examine the impact they have, we can make conscious decisions about which habits to reinforce and which ones to change. This process of reflection and awareness is the first step toward intentional habit formation. Once we recognize the habits we want to cultivate, we can take deliberate steps to make them a regular part of our lives. One of the most powerful tools for habit formation is the idea of starting small. Trying to overhaul your entire life all at once can feel overwhelming and lead to burnout. Instead, it's far more effective to start with small, manageable changes that you can incorporate into your daily routine. For example, if you want to develop the habit of exercising regularly, don't aim to work out for an hour every day right away. Start with just 10 or 15 minutes a day, gradually increasing the time as the habit becomes more ingrained. By starting small, you are more likely to stick with the new habit and avoid the feeling of being overwhelmed. This approach is known as the small wins strategy, and it works because small successes build momentum, helping you stay motivated and on track. Another key aspect of habit formation is consistency. It's not enough to just practice a new habit once or twice and expect it to stick. The more consistent you are with a new behavior, the more likely it is to become a permanent part of your routine. Consistency is crucial because, over time, the brain begins to associate the habit with a sense of reward. When you repeat a behavior, especially when it's tied to a positive outcome, your brain releases dopamine, the feel-good transmitter that reinforces the action and makes it feel rewarding. This creates a positive feedback loop, where the more you practice a habit, the more rewarding it becomes, making it easier to maintain. Changing habits is not always easy, and it requires patience. Often we expect quick results and become discouraged when change doesn't happen overnight. But real change takes time. It's important to be kind to yourself and recognize that habit formation is a process, not an event. There will be setbacks along the way, and you might encounter moments of frustration, but this is all part of the journey. The key is not to give up, but to keep going. Each small step forward, no matter how insignificant it may seem, is progress. By being persistent and patient, we can eventually shift our behaviors, and with time, these new habits will become an integral part of our lives. Ultimately, the ability to form new habits is one of the most empowering things we can do for ourselves. When we take control of our habits, we take control of our lives. We can create the future we want by consciously choosing the actions we take every day. Every habit we cultivate has the potential to make a profound impact on our lives. By understanding how habits form and how we can change them, we unlock the door to personal transformation. The power is in our hands. All we have to do is take the first step. Habits are not just mindless routines we follow each day. They are deeply rooted in the brain's biology. The process of habit formation is a fascinating and intricate one, guided by the brain's natural ability to adapt and rewire itself through repetition. To truly understand how habits work and how we can use them to change our lives, it's essential to understand the science behind them. Making a habit. The process that makes habit formation possible lies within a remarkable phenomenon called neuroplasticity, or neuroplasticity. This refers to the brain's ability to reorganize its structure by forming new neural connections and strengthening existing ones in response to experiences, learning, and repeated actions. Simply put, our brains are highly adaptable, and the more we repeat a behavior, the more our brains wire themselves to make that behavior automatic. At the core of this process is the habit loop. The habit loop is the cycle that governs the formation and execution of all habits, consisting of three key components: the cue, the routine, and the reward. It begins when we encounter a cue, an event, feeling, or situation that triggers a certain action. This cue could be something as simple as feeling stressed, seeing a sugary treat, or hearing a specific song on the radio. In response to the cue, we perform a routine, which is the behavior we typically engage in when we experience that cue. This routine could be something as harmless as reaching for a piece of chocolate when we're feeling anxious, or as complex as getting up early every morning to exercise. Once the routine is completed, we receive a reward, something that reinforces the behavior and makes us want to repeat it. The reward can be something tangible, like the satisfaction of eating that piece of chocolate, or more abstract, such as the emotional relief from managing stress. This feedback loop is crucial because it creates a cycle of reinforcement that strengthens the neural pathways in our brain, making the habit harder to break over time. When we engage in a habit repeatedly, the brain essentially trains itself to become more efficient at performing that behavior. The more we repeat an action, the more our brain relies on established neural connections, which reduces the cognitive load required to complete the behavior. This is why habits, once formed, can become automatic. For example, think about the first time you learned to drive a car. In the beginning, you were consciously aware of every action, turning the steering wheel, pressing the pedals, checking mirrors, and so on. But with practice, these actions eventually became automatic, and now you can drive without thinking about it much at all. The same process occurs when we form habits in other areas of life, whether it's exercising, eating healthily, or practicing gratitude. However, the brain's ability to form habits is not limited to positive behaviors. It also works with negative habits. If we repeatedly engage in behaviors that are harmful or counterproductive, like smoking or procrastination, the same neurological principles apply. The habit loop forms, just as it would for positive habits, reinforcing the undesirable behavior with the same strength. But here's the silver lining. Understanding that habits are rooted in the brain's plasticity gives us the power to change them. If we can rewire our brains to form negative habits, we can also rewire them to adopt new, healthier ones. It's not about trying to eliminate old habits. Rather, it's about replacing them with new behaviors that serve us better. Changing a habit involves breaking the old habit loop and replacing it with a new one. This requires identifying the cues that trigger the unwanted behavior and consciously choosing a new routine that delivers a similar reward. For instance, if stress triggers the habit of smoking, we can replace that routine with a healthier coping mechanism, like deep breathing or going for a walk. By consistently practicing this new routine, we begin to create new neural pathways in the brain, which eventually make the new habit feel as automatic as the old one. Over time, the brain will start to associate the new routine with the same sense of reward that the old one provided, and the new behavior will become ingrained. Neuroplasticity also highlights the importance of patience in the process of habit change. The brain doesn't rewire itself overnight. Just as it took time to establish an old habit, it will take time to form a new one. During this period, the brain is working hard to adapt to the new routine, strengthening the neural pathways associated with the new behavior. While this process can be challenging, understanding the science behind it gives us hope. The brain is constantly evolving, and as long as we stay committed to our new habits, the neural connections will continue to strengthen, making the new behavior feel more automatic and effortless over time. In conclusion, The science of habit formation is rooted in the brain's remarkable ability to adapt and change. By understanding how habits are formed through neuroplasticity and the habit loop, we gain the tools to change our lives for the better. Habits are not fixed. They are flexible, malleable, and within our control. Through repetition, consistency, and patience, we can rewire our brains and create new habits that support our goals and aspirations. The power to change is in our hands, and with the right understanding of how our brains work, we can transform our lives, one habit at a time. Changing our habits often begins with an awareness of the patterns that are already in place. Many of us go through life following certain routines without ever fully examining why we do the things we do, or how those actions are impacting our well-being. Habits, whether good or bad, tend to form naturally, without much thought. They are created from repeated actions that feel effortless, yet they significantly shape the course of our lives. To break free from unhealthy or unproductive habits, the first crucial step is recognizing them. Awareness is not just about identifying habits. It's about understanding the triggers, the actions themselves, and the rewards that follow. This awareness is the foundation upon which we can build lasting change. Our habits are often rooted in subconscious behavior. When we face certain situations, our brains automatically seek out familiar responses. For example, when we feel stressed, we may instinctively turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as eating comfort food, smoking, or procrastinating. These actions are driven by the brain's desire for a quick reward, such as relief from stress or a sense of comfort. However, most of us don't realize that this cycle of behavior is not helping us in the long run. It becomes automatic, almost second nature, and often results in negative consequences. The first step in changing these habits is recognizing that they are not serving us in the way we might think. By bringing awareness to our habitual behaviors, we can examine the consequences of those habits more closely. Once we are aware of the habits we want to change, it's essential to understand the reasons behind them. Why do we gravitate towards certain behaviors? In many cases, habits are formed as a response to emotional states or external triggers. When we are bored, tired, or anxious, we often seek something familiar to alleviate those feelings, even if it's not in our best interest. For instance, if you've had a long day and find yourself reaching for a sugary snack, the behavior might be driven by a need for comfort or energy. The brain associates sugar with a quick energy boost and a temporary feeling of pleasure, reinforcing the habit each time it is repeated. By identifying these underlying emotions and triggers, we begin to see that our habits are not just random actions, they are responses to deeper needs or feelings. This understanding allows us to break the habit loop by addressing the emotional or psychological factors that drive our behavior. It's not enough to simply stop engaging in the unwanted behavior. We must find a healthier alternative that satisfies the same emotional need. For example, instead of reaching for that sugary snack when you're stressed, you might choose a calming activity like meditation, deep breathing, or a short walk. And in spite of these activities, we may come to the end of that sugary snack when you're stressed, if by replacing the old habit with a new one that still provides a sense of relief or comfort, you can begin to rewire your brain and create a healthier, more productive pattern. Awareness also plays a critical role in recognizing how our habits affect our long-term goals. Many times, we are not fully conscious of the way our daily actions are shaping our future. We might think that skipping a workout today won't make a difference, or that staying up late watching TV won't impact our overall health. However, when these small decisions accumulate over time, they begin to have a significant impact. Awareness helps us see the bigger picture. By taking a step back and reflecting on our daily habits, we can better understand how they align with our long-term aspirations and values. If our current habits are not in line with where we want to be, awareness gives us the insight we need to make changes.